Back in the house, family, with another video, and we got something to talk about. Now, fellas, as we go through this video, I'm going to insert different video clips to be able to expand upon the message that I'm trying to deliver. And over here in 4.0, we don't run away from topics. 4.0 is a little bit different than, some of the other creators out there that happen to be in the Manosphere. And, if you look around on these internet streets, there's a lot of dudes out here talking about the Manosphere. I would say the only difference is that in 4.0, we understand a lot of the challenges that have happened before. So we're able to navigate those waters and understand the responsibility that comes along with dealing with women, just due to all of the frustrations that men have gone through, but also our predecessors as far as content creators who have delivered certain messages to make sure that we're staying sharp out here on these streets. But in 4.0, we do relationships, and relationships often can be complicated and sometimes they can be great. So sit back and enjoy. I'm going to try to get through this video as fast as possible. But it is going to be one of those videos where I'm going to take my time and we're going to talk about, this topic really in depth. So, if I'm doing one of these videos, my next video is probably going to be 23 seconds. Our late brother Kevin Samuels will be making an appearance at some point in this video because he touched upon this topic and it's something that men really need to hear. So let's get this out the way. I think when a lot of naysayers hear me talk about this topic, they might be having feelings, but understand one thing. As a black man, I love my mother. And I think that black men overall, we probably love our mothers more than any other group of men out there. And that's not a shot at anybody else. I'm just saying the way that we come up and the bonds that we have with our mothers is very special. But sometimes it can grow to be unhealthy. And unfortunately, this is a topic that we need to discuss. So without further ado, let's get busy.
Today's topic is how black mothers raise their sons to be their husband. Let me say that one more time. How black mothers raise their sons to be their husbands. See, growing up with an abusive mother as a child and throughout my teenage years, I always knew something was off, but I couldn't grasp it. I couldn't grasp it because I was suffering, I was hurting, and I was also uneducated about the situation. I was uneducated about narcissism.
So now that you guys know exactly what we're talking about, I want to make this point. Not every mother is narcissistic, but you do have a sector of black women who take advantage of their sons in many different ways. And I'm going to explain that in this video. But unfortunately, some women, some mothers out there forget really what their role and what their responsibility is to their children. They often forget that it is their job to make sure that boy or that girl is set up in their life to be able to fly and take off. But you do have some mothers out there who display narcissistic tendencies in order to control their children. And that's wrong. Her job is really simple. It's to give you the best love and treatment and care that she possibly can give. And she's willing to risk it all for you. That's really what I think a mother is supposed to do. A father provides guidance, discipline, love in a different type of way. But usually you start to see the problem when the boy becomes a teenager and it's time for him to start learning how to fly, even on into his 20s when he should be already flying. But you do have some mothers that prevent that son from taking off.
Typical children, typical teenager. We was uneducated. We didn't know nothing about what was going on until we got older. So it's understandable. It's understandable. See, as I got older, as I started to find out who I was as an individual, as I started to become wiser, as I started to become more independent and in control of my life, things got worse between me and my mom. Things got way worse. Things got worse because I was becoming something. I am something that she could never keep and something that she could never have. And that was a real man. As I started to become a man, in my own right, things got worse. Things took a turn for the worse. See, narcissistic mothers, they hate when their sons become a man in their own right. Because once a boy becomes a man, nobody can control a man. Nobody.
And that is a fact right there. A lot of times mothers use tools and mechanisms to be able to control the child, not only from a disciplinary, aspect when the child is probably like, 6 through 10, reinforcement to make sure the child doesn't act a certain way. But as the child gets around 17, 16, 18, how are you controlling the child right then and there? And I hate to use the word controlling because it should be raising, it should be, preparing the child to be able to take flight. 16, I mean, back in the day, you were damn near an adult. But a lot of mothers, for some reason, they use these tactics in order to keep the child down and keep the child kind of underneath them to a certain extent. And I really don't understand it. But what he talked about there was so important, and it really has something to do with preventing you from flying. Let's explore a little bit of that.
Why is it that a growing number of grown men, why are they living with their mamas? What is going on with that?
Well, and this is something that has come up more than since I do, image coaching, life coaching one-on-one with these guys. And what I started to notice is over the last year, I was starting to see more and more guys who were either had their associate's degree or their bachelor's degree, gainfully employed, but in their mid to late 20s, still living at home with mama. And it just started getting to the point where it begged the question. I'm like, what is going on with guys in this failure to launch? I actually did a couple of broadcasts on my YouTube channel addressing it. One that was about 2 weeks ago that's epic. If you guys haven't checked it out, I strongly suggest you check it out, because I even had guys calling into the show, talking about, I'm in this same position. I had a father call in who basically had to go through this. So here's the thing. It's no respecter of race, income. But it's definitely a millennial thing. And we gotta address it, because what I'm seeing is so many guys out there are just lost in the sauce. They're just twisting out there, and we try to give guys, input, direction. It's one thing to be out there, but it's another thing to be out there with no plan. Everything happens to everybody.
Right, of course.
It happens to everybody. But just being there, there's some standard markers. I always ask what's your relationship like with your dad. Psst. Ask you what your plan is. Psst. Then I also noticed that there's a substantial, better than, 70% of them identify with some version of mgtow.
There it is.
And then there's I would say better than 50% of them are virgins. So I'm like, all right, we got to actually start discussing this, getting it out there, and start having this conversation so guys can start coming into the light to get them up and out of this. And I would say this, of the guys I actually work with, let's see. I'm trying to come up with a number. Close to 80% of them are on the way out of the house or out of the house now.
Okay, well that's good.
And under 6 months. So
okay, good.
So good. That's where we're going to kind of go from this. The average guy I'm talking about is making around $40,000 a year. Okay. When I was 18 years old, you turned 18, you had three options. college, military, or job, but all three of them
Straight up.
you had to get out of the house.
That's right.
I'm talking about guys who have gone to college, got a degree, and went back and lived with mother. There was a guy, I'm working with a guy who's making $95,000 a year, and he's living at home with mom.
That is inexcusable.
It is not about it. So it's not about money for a lot of these guys. What it is, a lot of these guys are basically son boyfriends.
Ooh.
That's what they are, son boyfriends.
Son boyfriends, sonsbins as well, right? I think we talked about that.
Yeah, because when you ask, well, what does your dad think about it? Inevitably, my dad's not in my life, because no man will put up with this shit. Because here's the real deal. People in the chat room can say what they want to. You can go get a fucking job at OnQ or 7-Eleven and go get you a $500 studio apartment. This is what you have to do when you're starting out. But a lot of these guys want to move from their parents' home, their mother's home, into this nice home with the lot. Here's what I hear. I'm saving up. I'm paying off debt. I'm saving up to get a house. Right. And then, you know what? I dig 3 levels deep. One question and 2 follow-up questions, and the entire story falls the fuck apart.
Now, after listening to that, I'm pretty sure you can understand when I say that guy is dearly missed. Now, he touched upon so much fire in that clip that he did with Donovan there. I don't even know where to start. He talked about the rules, and the rules are very simple and plain. When I was 18, I was given a choice, just like my brother. Job, military, or college. The reason why you have these options in front of you is so that way you can get out there in the real world and start experiencing some things as a man. You got to go through the ups and downs. It's a process for a reason. You can't skip steps. I talk about that with dating, but it's also a point that men have to go through as well. It's a little bit of adversity. And look, you can beat me up about this. You can say, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But this is the reason why people like myself, other content creators, as well as Kevin, used to talk about, yo, you can't be a 25-year-old man talking about you got everything figured out. 30-year-old man talking about you got everything figured out. You have got to go through the ups and downs, the highs and lows of this life as a man, and start to experience things for yourself. Now, I have a lot of friends, and this doesn't just happen to black males. I have Latino friends that go through this, Italian friends that go through this, Polish friends that go through this, to where they sit around and they're being at home a little bit too long. And really back in the day, I would say when I was coming up, I was born in the early 80s. You know, a lot of guys was trying to get out the house. And as a man, you know, I didn't want to stay in the house. And my pops was not letting me stay at home anyway. Both of my parents was like, yo, you got to get your ass out here and go to college. I had no plans of going to college. They were like, yo, you either about to go to some trade school over here in New York, or you can go somewhere and go to college. My parents took me to the University of Toronto. I visited the University of Miami, and I ended up at Clark Atlanta University. I didn't even want to go. It was because the woman I was dating and my son's mom, who later became my son's mom, rather, she was already in Georgia. So I was like, yo, look, this is what I'm going to do. But I'm lucky enough to have a mother that allowed me to kind of take flight like that. And a lot of mothers prevent their sons from actually going out there and experiencing life at an early age. And you got to get a head start on this stuff. For instance, a mother may come to her son and she'll say something like, baby, you should stay at home to be able to save money so that way you can make sure you're safe and sound. All of this other type of stuff that kind of falls in that type of language is preventing that boy from going out there being a man. So you got to be able to launch at some point, and the ideal age is really around 18. No matter how much some mothers try to go out there and delay it. But the reason I really wanted to highlight Kevin is because Kevin talked about this, as he mentioned in the earlier broadcast in that clip, but I'm not too sure it's the same broadcast that I'm thinking about. And I had so much trouble finding this particular live that he did. He did an epic live one time where he was speaking to brothers who were calling into his show. And at this particular junction, a young man called up. He had to be around 35 years old, dark-skinned guy. He was a data analyst making around $150,000. And when he called into Kevin's show, he was contemplating between staying with his company or going out there on his own. And he was so terrified to go out there on his own and start his own business. But he had 10 plus years of experience of being a data analyst, but he was just afraid. And he was like, yo, I got to make sure everything is perfect. I don't have all these contracts. And Kevin was telling him, when you start a business, it's going to be, some trials and tribulations. Where do you go off on your own and all of a sudden thinking that you're going to be out there balling? It just doesn't work that way. But as Kevin was having this conversation with his brother, he talked about how he was making around $150,000 and he was paying somewhere like $3,000 or $4,000 a month to be able to take care of his mother, who was in a nursing home. Now, this is where this conversation is going to get a little tricky. I might hurt some feelings, but that's not my intent. I know so many brothers, and these are mostly black men, who make around $120,000 a year, all the way up to $300,000, that are paying in excess of anywhere from $3,000 a month on up to about $6,000 a month to be able to take care of their mother, who lives in a nursing home. That is tragic. And let's talk about this. There's nothing wrong with taking care of your mother. I think as black men, we love our mothers more than any other group out there. That's just the way I feel about it, because I'm a black man and I can understand these things. But there also becomes a point to where it's rather unhealthy, and we got to be able to discuss this. So before I transition over to the next video, I got to talk about this. Let's go through the marriage to hell nah basics. When a woman marries a man, they first get married. This woman has no children. She chooses a man who was able to provide and protect her. They then go on to have legacies, children. Let's run through the boys first. In this particular image, you see two boys there. It is the mother's job to be able to raise those boys, give them as much love, care, take care of them, give them the love that a mother can provide to her best abilities until those children turn around 18 to 21, where they can go off and experience life on their own. But as they have challenges, the mother will always be there to take care of her boys. She gives her life for her children. The father has a role and a responsibility as well, but we're not going to touch upon the father just yet. As those boys get older and they go on to have a life for themselves, they may choose a woman and then they may have kids. So now the grandmother, the grandfather, the people who got married in the before image, they now are rewarded with grandchildren to be able to satisfy them in their later years, to keep them lively. Because face it, family is important to most black people. It always will be. In any other race out there, it's very important that you have family. I know in this space, sometimes we critique having family and having children, having to deal with child support and the headaches that women bring. But an ideal way to do things is really about having family. So that's the reason why I encourage relationships. But as we know, men often expire before women. So that same man who chose this woman to be his lovely wife, that he went on to have a family with, he expires. He has lived his life to be able to take care of this woman, to treat this woman like the lady she is, and she has helped him flourish as well. But as that man expires, hopefully he has done the things that he needed to do to put that woman in so much of a position to where she can be taken care of from a financial standpoint. So now you have a situation where the father, the man, the grandfather in this particular image, he is no longer there. But the son is being able to take care of his mother. The son has married another woman. That woman has granted him legacies. So now it is her job, who the son married, his wife, to be able to care for his mother until she expires. Roles and responsibilities. Now let's go back here. Man married this woman already. They decide to have legacies. Now what happens if this is two girls? Both of these girls hopefully go on to choose men that are going to be able to take care of them and protect them. And they appreciate these guys. Imagine if the younger woman that you see here in this video was one of those daughters. She chose a man, and that man provided her with children. The mother who got married that had two daughters is now rewarded by having grandchildren who are going to keep her life being fun and entertaining. And she has responsibility, and she's able to spend time with her grandchildren because, like I said, family is important. But in this situation, the grandmother who chose the man originally that married her, if he expires, hopefully the grandfather, the man that this woman chose to marry a long time ago, put her in a good financial position to the best of his abilities to be able to sustain herself. So that way, the daughters who have now decided to marry another man can accept the mother. They're not asked to do anything financially for that particular mother, but the daughter has a responsibility to her mother. Always should be the rules. That's the ideal situation. Woman decides to marry a man who is financially responsible, who is going to protect and provide for this woman. Marry before you carry. But here's where the challenge starts. When you got women that want to go out here and get with a man, have no intentions of that man marrying them, and they're going to go out here and be single mothers talking about they can raise these children all by themselves. That is completely wrong, because when that happens, it puts too much pressure on the son to be able to take care of the mother, because she did not choose a man to marry her. And then when you later become a man, your mother is going to come to you as if you are her husband, and that's where it becomes unhealthy. Let's go through it.
Oh, so you gonna sit up here in front like you doing me a favor, right? Since I put you on camera, you ain't got nothing to say, huh? So, really? Oh, you gonna act like you just moving my stuff and you just looking out for your mama, but in actuality, my own son kicking me the fuck out his damn house. Why? Because he got a new family on the way, and that individual has 2 kids, and he needs the space. So now he want to kick his own mama out the house after everything I just been through. The son that I gave birth to, gave life, wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me, and that I raised, and want to kick me out of his own damn house.
See, this is a chaotic situation, and she is being so disingenuous. Like I said, this is going to be a tough conversation to have. A lot of Black women do this, and I'm not saying, oh, look, I'm not into that. Like, I am tired of going back and forth with Black women. If you want to choose to go back and forth with them and exhaust your everlasting breath, go ahead, knock yourself out. I'm not here to go back and forth with black women about issues like this. Because being honest with you, I don't have problems with black women. Like, I say what I say, and if they got a problem with it, they got a problem with it. But I often come across women that I say what I say, and they don't have a problem with what I'm saying. I love my mother. So when I'm doing these types of critiques, I'm not trying to be offensive to anybody, but these conversations have got to be had, and we have to touch upon these topics really in depth so that way you could get a full understanding of what's going on. She kept saying she's the reason why he's here, and a lot of women use that type of argument. You know, I ain't trying to hear that. A mother's responsibility is to her child. So when she gives birth to that child, you know, she's basically giving her life for that child. It ain't like the child's supposed to be giving his life for the mother. Like that's ridiculous. He also talked about how he's starting a new family. Now, we can make fun of him being a stepdaddy and all of that type of stuff, but that's not the reason why I'm doing this video. A man is supposed to start his own family. He's supposed to be taking flight at 18, having experience from 18 to 25, like Sigmund Freud talked about. And I'm going to explain that in another video. But 18 through 25 is years where you're trying to figure out what you're supposed to be doing. Are you choosing isolation or are you choosing relationship? This is the reason why you listen to me, because these other content creators, they can't talk like this. But when you go through that period of 18 to 25, on the other side of that, you still going to be developing, but you're supposed to have some kind of baseline understanding of who you are as a man. That's the reason why that 18 taking flight is very important. But he's trying to start his own family, and that's what he is supposed to do. But the mother is saying, because I did all of this stuff for you, you're supposed to be taking care of me. And the question should always come up. Where is this man's father? Did this mother decide to have a child with a man and then decide that she can do everything by herself? Did something happen to the young man's father where he passed away? These things are very important. And a lot of times these mothers who are narcissistic, they try to skip over the facts that I laid out in this video. A lot of women will go out here and intentionally be a single mother, knowing that if she has a boy, that boy is supposed to be able to take care of her. That is wrong. The way it is supposed to be is that that woman is supposed to choose a man who is going to take care of her to the best of his ability. And when he expires, he leaves her with some type of financial, understanding or some type of financial footprint to be able to survive at least a good life until she expires. But if she breaks that contract and decides that she's going to leave that man, she wants nothing to do with that man, and then the son is supposed to take care of her until her last days, that's some BS. And I just have to call it out. Now, I know a lot of brothers are going to take issues with this. What you tend to see in the black community, especially, is brothers who were born in the 70s usually talk like this. But when women break that contract, they put too much responsibility on the young black male who's supposed to be going out there starting his own damn family. And like I said, I don't like that. That is not the rules once they break the contract. And look, let me tell you something right now. This is not only isolated to black men. Believe it or not, a lot of black women go through this. Black women have a challenge of overcoming their mothers. That's the reason why they're very afraid of their mothers a lot of times. What often tends to happen is that the black woman, as she's out here trying to navigate life in her 20s and her 30s, she wastes too much time in not choosing a man to be set up and kind of starting her own succession, and meaning like creating her own family, choosing a man who's going to put her in a good position. They'll mess around until their late 30s, thinking that they're going to go out there, have a job. And then what often happens is that black woman who's out here living her life, her mother is going to be like, yo, you need to take care of me. That's not the way it's supposed to be. It all goes back to this point right here. That woman is supposed to choose a man who is able to take care of her to the best of his responsibilities, doesn't mean that he's going to make her a millionaire or she got to live this fancy life. It's about sustaining her after he expires. But once she breaks that contract, that's when things fall apart. So that way, there is no pressure or financial responsibility on the young children. And that's exactly what's happening in this video. Because this woman is not set up financially, she thinks it's her son's responsibility to take care of her. That's BS.
He can't do this shit. That's all right. I'll be calling the police so he can know that what he doing is wrong. You can't illegally just put nobody out your house. And the fact that I'm his mama makes it 10 times even fucking worse. Who does this to their own damn mama? That's all right. I'm gonna just let God handle it. It's all good.
That last little bit was frustrating to hear. Because I understand that she's in a position where she may not be able to take care of herself, but she put herself in that position. But notice in there how she said that she might call the police. She's also doing some SOS out to the sisterhood. You know, that type of stuff is not going to work. Dudes are just too aware now. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you got to make smart decisions. When she said that she is going to call the police to help you wake up and understand that what you're doing is wrong, you know they have something called Adult Protective Services. In this country, probably in certain states, I don't think you can just release your mother like that. I think that, you know, they try to get involved. The laws try to get involved if you try to separate from your mother in certain states. So you got to know these Adult Protective Services laws depending on what state you're in. But like I said in the beginning of this video, this is not some, you know, I hate my mother type of stuff or some issue that all Black women have. Look, I don't speak in absolutes, but I also have a 23-year-old son. So one of the challenges for me is that as I consider starting a second family, you know, I want to be able to have a second family. But my mother at some point was like, yo, you got to take care of your mother and check on your mother. And I was like, look, I'm going to check on you, but your ass ain't living with me. I told my mother that early on. She didn't want to hear it. But I think that when you as a Black man become a real man, you're able to have a conversation with your mother to explain to her, look, I love you to death, but I can't stop living my life for you. You're supposed to live your life for me. Those are the rules. My mother, believe it or not, she didn't want to hear when I had that conversation with her. But when I did have that conversation with her, I think secretly she knew that that was the day I became a man. And I probably was around 27 years old when that happened. Hopefully you guys took something away from this video. This is not about, you know, bashing your mom or bashing Black women. I want to reiterate that. And whether it's the original Manosphere or what I call my version of the Manosphere, where I encourage relationships, I think we all are here to help men. And sometimes we have to have uncomfortable conversations in order to do such. But in closing, let me say this. This is the beginning and the end point. Because if the mother decides that she's not going to marry a man, she's going to go up here and get knocked up by 4 different men, or, you know, just go out there and be a single mother or whatever. What she is doing is placing too much responsibility on the children. The right way to do things is to marry a man. That man expires. He puts you in some decent financial responsibility to where you're not going to be a burden to your children. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.